Steven Universe first released roughly 10 years ago on May 21st, 2013. I remember growing up with this show and enjoying it a lot. This is one of the two cartoons from my childhood that I watched every episode of, the other being Gravity Falls. However, recently I decided to watch another Cartoon Network show that I had seen before, Adventure Time, and I had an absolute blast. There was good music, good jokes, good characters. What's not to love? But that got me thinking. Was Steven Universe on that level? Like, Adventure Time is known as one of the best cartoons of its time, but Steven? I really liked it as a kid, but nowadays it seems like a bit of a punching bag when it comes to the internet's cartoon consensus. So, here we are in the future trying to decide if Steven Universe was a cartoon legend, or if my rose-tinted glasses have started to crack. That's not a rose joke. Or a gem joke. God damn it. Howdy, and welcome back to the project that I've been working on for the past 6 months. It's been a huge time sink, so I hope you enjoy it. This video is going to be a big ol' retrospective on the series, as I dive into the original 5-season run, the movie, and future, with some additional segments sprinkled in here and there. Now, I don't normally ask this because I feel like shit every time I do, but consider leaving a like, subscribing, or commenting how you feel about the video or Steven Universe as a whole. First, I'm going to give some history and background information on the show, and then we'll go over the contents of the franchise. After storyboarding for Adventure Time, Rebecca Sugar began to work on Steven Universe, and it aired on Cartoon Network, home to so many classic cartoons from all eras. A lot of the show's details came from their own life experiences. Beach City's based on Delaware, which Sugar had visited prior. Spinell's character is based on a childhood memory. And hell, Steven's based on her own brother, Steven Sugar. The show was storyboard driven, which I believe isn't super common when it comes to cartoons. It was also done in hand-drawn animation, which I'll talk a bit more about later. It follows a boy, Steven, as he learns to use his gem powers to be a crystal gem and save the universe. That's not even close to encompassing the whole story, so let's try to do that a little bit, yeah? I'm gonna give you a rundown on every season of the show. I'll make comments on things of note when I find them, but I'll give an overall opinion on each season at the end. Now, starting with... This is probably the worst season of the original run. Still, that doesn't stop it from having some of the most iconic episodes of the show. I mean, the first 4 are some of the episodes that immediately come to mind when I'm reminded of the show. Episode 1 is Gem Glow, which might be one of the most familiar titles of a cartoon episode to me. It all starts with Steven being sad that his favorite ice cream isn't being sold anymore. This episode shows off the Centipedals, a recurring monster. There's also a really neat bit of foreshadowing here with this glow ring in the freezer. I never really saw that before. After defeating Senti, he eats one of the cookie cats that the gems got for him, and his belly button starts to glow, kicking off this boy's physical and emotional struggle to become a space god rockman hybrid. Laser Light Cannon is actually really good. It introduces the concept of rose quartz, and it has Greg's first appearance as well. I like Greg as a character. He's one of the only characters that doesn't really get better or worse, so it's good to see he starts out alright. Plus, we get Let Me Drive My Van Into Your Heart. It's a cute song that they rework throughout the series. The visuals at the end are awesome. Also, the backing tracks were really nice to listen to as well. Cheeseburger backpack, cheeseburger backpack, cheeseburger backpack, cheeseburger back. Nothing crazy happens in this episode. They talk about the Lunar Sea Spire and Jamie the Mailman is introduced. He also mentions Barb, another male person, which really confirms to me that quite a bit of this show is pretty well planned out, because she doesn't really exist until season 2. It got me thinking about how much this show has laid out in the first few episodes, like Connie, rose quartz, and multiple deep character relationships. Now, of course, a lot of this could just be, oh, we said this 30 episodes ago? Sure, let's put it in this random episode. I don't know, I just think it's neat. Number 4, Together Breakfast, isn't super exciting lore-wise, but we do get a look at the temple as that's where most of the adventure here takes place. We also see Garnet activating her room with a red and blue gem, hinting at a little something that we find out at the end of the season. Episode 5 is the first Townie episode, but I like it. The Townie episodes are all the episodes that largely feature other human characters who live in Beach City. I really like the Frybo monster in this. He's really cool looking. The colors in this one are dull and sad, but it adds such a good amount of flavor to the episode. Also, why did it only take 5 episodes before they were like, yeah, we want Steven naked in this one? I changed my mind. Bad episode. For episode 6, I wrote down regular show reference.
Chill it, dude.
Dude, Connie's so cool. I feel bad for her getting wrapped up in alien stuff, but she's great. This is a good episode too. Both character development and a power unlock. It's big. The underwater part also looks really pretty. Serious Steven is a dungeon episode. They go explore an area and talk a little history. Nothing too important. Episode 9, Tiger Millionaire, sets up a filler arc between Amethyst and Steven and their secret wrestling personas. Steven's Lion is the name of episode 10, and it introduces Lion. I love Lion. He's so cute. Oh, also, they did the episode 2 thing with the color palette. It's not as good, but I still like it. Episode 11 is why the words Meat Beat Mania pops into my head from time to time. This episode does a really good job showing how cool Garnet is. It's a funny episode, nothing too important. Jesus, episode 12 is the fusion episode? I'm pretty sure this is the episode that sparked a lot of the fan base. And it has the first big song of the series. There were smaller ones before it, but I remember Giant Woman being the most popular at the time. Opal is really cool, and Amy Mann has such a nice voice for her. Although in terms of fusions, she feels the least fused to me. There really isn't enough Amethyst in her design or mannerisms. Episode 13 is just an M. Night Shyamalan movie before it was bad. You know, I like Lars. I think he's a good mean character, and I'm glad they set up his arc really early considering how important he becomes later. The moss aspect is terrifying, but hey, the flowers are pretty. I don't care about the Onion episodes. I'm sorry. This is the one where Steven tries to get his guy figure back from Onion and accidentally gives him the power of God. It's not a bad one, I guess. Episode 16 is the poofing episode. This was a really dark one at the time, and it still is now. The color palette is dark, and the rain adds a lot to the mood. The music kicks it back up in this episode as well. The death scene is so fucked. The shadow cast Pearl's hair and face being all messed up, and the dialogue. Unfortunately, Amethyst Inflation makes this the worst episode. I love Connie and Lion episodes. This series of episodes is a favorite. I love the fact that Connie starts doing stuff right away. She's not just like, uh-oh, I'm a normal human, y'all. This stuff's crazy and I keep getting into dangerous situations. Instead of having another Greg, you get a fully fledged character with so much growth even between our first 2 episodes. Also, Lion is still fucking cute. Beach Party is about the pizzas and the gems killing a monster together through
the power of friendship.
Rose's room is fucked. I'm surprised at how many spooky episodes they did in the first season. The donut scene is extra creepy. The town as a whole is super creepy. My favorite part of this episode is the sound design and music. It really elevates the horror of it, with sudden sounds and skipping tracks. I know this isn't the last we'll see of it, so we'll just move on to the Sugalite episode. Nicki Minaj was Sugalite's voice, and honestly, it fits. It's a real shocker of a casting, but I really like it. The fusion dance is way too horny, which unfortunately isn't a one-time thing. Also, big song number 2. It's good, but mostly just because Dee Dee has a good voice. In 21, Joking Victim, great title, Sadie and Steven prank Lars for being a jerk by putting magic fire salt on a donut. Steven and the Stevens, they did time travel to make a band. I do want to bring up the fact that there was just a time travel device that the gems were looking for. If one of the gems found it, the entire war could have been stopped. But because Steven found it, he made a band, and then went back in time to kill himself and all the clones he created. The Centipedal is back from episode 1 and Monster Buddies, and Steven can bubble things. Another Connie episode with episode 24, an indirect kiss. 2 things are introduced, cracked gems and Steven's healing power. There's good emotions, and I love Connie popping out her lenses after Steven healed her sight at the end. Mirror Gem is kind of crazy. I remember liking Lapis, but nothing really springs to mind of her doing anything all that interesting later in the show. This is a good episode, though, and it's our first introduction to a new gem. Ocean Gem. Man, this is just a real culmination episode with every main character coming together for a mission, which I love. The music went off, the visuals went off, there's a great fight, and I love the fact that not only does Lapis have water powers, she kinda also has mirror powers. Greg gets into the fight, and the shield comes out too. Man, this is just such a good episode. On top of that, the space visuals look super pretty. Episode 27 has Greg kinda being a dick. Space Race, episode 28, is fucked up. Pearl goes full villain mode and almost kills Steven in space. I was originally gonna give Secret Team a single sentence, but it introduces gem shards, at least their physical forms because they were also in Frybo too. Island Adventure is cool. Sure, it introduces the island, which is a recurring location, but Sadie is the real reason to watch this. She's so fucked up for hiding their only way off the island, but goddamn can she body slam an invisible gem monster. It's a good episode. Kinda makes me hate and like all three of these characters at the same time. Episode 31 sucks. It's a Keep Beach City weird episode and I hate it. 32 is the introduction of Alexandrite. All three of the gems fused together. It's a pretty emotional episode with the drama between Steven and Connie. Connie's parents are pretty shitty. They're so uptight. I don't really want to talk about Garnet's world. They gave Ronaldo god powers. Watermelon Steven. There are Watermelon Stevens. The Watermelon Stevens beat up Ronaldo. Lion 3 straight to video introduces new lion mechanics. Also, Pearl is fucking weird.
I like to watch you sleep sometimes. And by sometimes, I mean often.
It's a very sweet episode, though. The videotape's adorable, and they give Sadie a cute little moment, too. This one's pretty monumental. I had to rewatch Alone Together twice. It's an important episode because it's all about fusion. Some of it is a bit horny, but once the training montage ends, things get kind of crazy. I remember adoring this episode because the relationship that Steven and Connie develop is so cute, and Stevani is a great first Steven fusion. Garnet's excitement in this episode is great with future knowledge here, but it's so damn awkward to have multiple teenagers crush on Stevani. Like, I guess it kind of makes sense that a mysterious, new, cool, tall person is becoming popular, but knowing that they're just two kids is no bueno. Oh, also fuck Kevin. Episode 37 is the Peridot episode. I like how she's kind of the main villain for the rest of the season, but that's about it. There's not much to say about the test, other than how it doesn't really end how I expect an episode of this show to end. Usually there's some kind of truth to be told, with everyone, or at least Steven, learning some kind of lesson. But he just kind of lies about it, saying that the test that they rigged for him helped. And I kind of like it. B-drill. I didn't write anything else for this one. On the Run, episode 40, is all about Amethyst. I like Steven and Amethyst's sibling-like relationship. It's cute. Cool fight scene, too. These two definitely needed one. 41 is another Ronaldo episode. 42 is... No, okay, fine. Episode 41 is like partially a Sadie and Lars episode, so it's fine. Kinda. It's about Lars and Ronaldo's falling out, but I don't really care about their relationship. And they never go back to it again, so it kind of just doesn't matter. There's some really cool visuals in this one, though. Winter Forecast has Garnet giving Steven a tiny bit of her future vision power, so he can make the right responsible choice and help Connie get home safe and sound. Episode 43 is the most fucked up part of the show that I could remember before my rewatch. This shit. Amethyst emotionally tortures Greg by turning into his dead wife because he wants to stop watching a show with her. And then Steven sees it. 44 is more Peridot stuff. I like her, but her build-up is pretty tame. Rose's Scabbard is one of my favorite episodes. Pearl's emotions really make it. I don't know why seeing her entire existence get shattered is just mwah. Jesus Christ, that's fucked. Everything about this episode is awesome. The music, the shots, the performances, it just does so much in its normal 11-minute runtime. Open Book sees the return of Rose's room as it tricks Steven into thinking it's Connie. And it's kind of cool. Not as creepy as the first time, but they still do some spooky stuff. Number 47, Shirt Club. Steven makes a shirt for his dad's business, and Buck Dewey takes it way too far. Episode 48 is... Nuh-uh. I refuse. I will not, under any circumstance, talk about the fucking Uncle Grandpa crossover episode. No fucking way in hell. 49's a flashback episode. We meet Marty and learn about Greg's first time meeting Rose. I love the comment about Amethyst liking Greg's hair because in the present we see her with a similar hairstyle. From here on out, I'm pretty sure it's all really important. In the message, Lapis sends a message to Steven setting up the finale that Greg decodes using the Wailing Stone, an item they found earlier in the season. I lied, episode 51 isn't important and it isn't that good. It features my second least favorite character, Mayor Dewey, as he tries to help with a power outage. The Peridot situation parts are interesting, but most of the episode isn't that. I do like how, yet again, they treat Steven as a dumb little kid and talk about things behind his back. 52, The Return, is the second to last episode of this season, part one of this two-part finale. Peridot's hand is actually really menacing. Some great colors again. I love when they do a limited palette. Jasper is super cool too, and that's boosted by Garnet's terrifying poof. This is a top tier episode here. And finally, the big one. Jailbreak, the season finale. We got Ruby and Sapphire, a phenomenal fight scene, and the best song so far. I also like the detail that Jasper has similar powers to Amethyst, because we learn later that they're both born in kindergartens. Malachite at the end was cool, and Love Like You with vocals in the credits. God, I just love kissing all my fingers. Probably the best of the season. Well, now that I've rewatched all of season 1, here are my final thoughts. The characters are really dynamic. All of them change a lot this early on, and it's really great to see. Their early designs are iconic, but I can already tell you that I like their redesigns a lot more. The music felt a lot less in comparison to other seasons, and there's a lot of inconsistency with the designs. They can be partially excused because I can tell it's supposed to be more of like a stylistic choice, but it still isn't my favorite. They stopped some stuff pretty early on, like the dark circles behind Steven's eyes, and the really weird summoning bit that Pearl does to get her spear a couple times. That's not a design thing. I just don't like it, but it's the first season. They were working out the kinks. Overall, I'd say it was solid. I give it 6.8 inflated amethysts out of 10. It's alright. A decent start. Now keep in mind, some of the characters that I'm about to talk about aren't in the first season, but I still wanted to bring them up here. Most of the voice acting is really good, with Dee Dee, Michaela, and Grace doing incredibly well as major characters. Estelle felt like a tiny bit awkward at first, but her characterization of Garnet is just so damn powerful. She's very cold and monotone a lot of the time, but in those moments where she becomes super expressive and very emotional, it cements this as a really good performance. Matthew Moy as Lars was great. It's very expressive voice, super good characterization. A lot of the gem voices too. Shelby Rabara as Peridot, Kimberly Brooks as Jasper, Yellow, Blue, and White played by Patty LaPone, Lisa Hannigan, and Christine Ebersole, respectively. They play three very unique overarching villains, and not only do their voices fit their characters well, they fit each other well too. When I hear them in the show, it really amplifies the fact that this is a group of regal, power-hungry assholes with super deep character flaws. Some fusions too. AJ Michalka as Stevani is one of my favorites, and I and many others that I know love Alistair James as Rainbow 2.0. However, I have put off one very important voice. Steven's voice is a little grating. Now, of course, I'm really just talking about, like, the first half of season 1. Now, nothing against Zach Callison at all, because, again, it's super early on. Later on, he fucking crushes it. And even in those first few episodes, he's still giving a great performance. It's just, I don't know, maybe a directional thing. At the end of the day, I think he still did a good job at those early seasons, but I'm really happy that by the end of it all, he became one of the strongest people in that cast. Alright, let's get into season 2. Season 2 starts out right where we left off. I feel like I remember this Steven avoiding Connie conflict going on for longer, but my memory's not that great. Episode 55 is Steven and his teenage friends going out on a road trip, where they find Peridot's escape pod. Episode 56 is Love Letters, where Jamie the mailman goes all hubba hubba over Garnet. 57, Reformed, shows us a bit more insight on poofing, and how when Amethyst rushes her reformation, she isn't too wise about it and takes on some impractical forms. We also get our Amethyst redesign here. Episode 50, something. Season 2, Episode 5. We got the reworked intro, which I prefer. This episode is a really good one. Pearl does bad stuff again, and I like it. It starts off really cute and fun. There's 2 songs, too. The jam song is good, but You Do It For Her is one of the greats. It ends cute, too. Kinda. It also perpetuates something that I didn't really realize how well they built up. Steven's identity conflict with his mother. Episode 6 is a goddamn Keep Beach City weird episode. I swear to God, Ronaldo. Episode 7 is a scary one. Seeing more Peridot is a must, knowing how major of a character she'll end up becoming. But the forced fusion shit is awful, in a cool way. The effects and sound design of them are just great, and getting more character development with Garnet is something that feels decently rare. So that's nice. Season 2, Episode 8 is a flashback episode. And a really good one at that. It's all about how Greg and Rose really fell in love. The song was alright, but the visuals were great. Like when Greg tries to fuse with Rose and turns the stage lights on, man, that's a good shot. It's very cute. I also love seeing the bad blood between Greg and Pearl. Number 9, a lot of these big ones back to back. This one's about Lapis. Steven also gets dream powers of some sort. It was alright, pretty creepy actually. In season 2 episode 10, we get our final fusion of the main 3, with Garnet and Pearl creating Sardonyx. It's a fun fusion episode, and we get a rare Amethyst song, which isn't bad. The drama in this episode. Pearl really is just an awful person. She's always doing some really fucked up shit. Not the only one, but she's got a lot of bad examples. Episode 11 of season 2 was one I remember liking a lot. It's good stuff. I love Ruby and Sapphire's dynamic, and it once again shows more Garnet development. 12, Onion Friend is an Onion episode. We see Vidalia and learn that she's Onion's mom, and that she and Amethyst had some sort of history. I've learned that I don't really like the Jamie episodes during this rewatch. Historical Friction has Jamie and Steven performing a history of the founding of Beach City in playform. Friendship, episode 14 of season 2, is about Peridot. Kinda, not really. Garnet and Pearl make up with each other and they get Peridot's boot. Nightmare Hospital is really fucking cool. The colors are great, and it's a Connie episode. It's got a focus on her relationship with her mother, and it's really cool. The music really goes off, a sound design, the reveal and the ending too. This is a top tier episode. And my favorite of the season so far. Episode 16 isn't that important, but Sadie does lean into her singing later on in the show, so there's that. Also, the transition in the middle of the song at the end is just wonderful. Episode 17 is the beginning of Peridot's character arc. Also, the main problem for this season, the cluster, is put into the limelight. 18, When It Rains, is just a cute character bonding episode between Steven and Peridot.
Oh, Steven, there's one more thing I had to mention.
What is it?
I love you.
That's the cutest fucking thing I've ever seen. Back to the Barn takes us back to the barn, as Pearl and Peridot grow a bit of a rivalry when it comes to their skill sets. Episode 20 is a similar one to the last one, but instead of Pearl and Peridot having more character connection, it's Amethyst and Peridot. I wonder who next episode's gonna be about. 21 is the answer, and it has Garnet and sorry, not yet. It does have Garnet, but it's a flashback episode. It's Steven's birthday, and as a gift, Garnet tells Steven the story of how Ruby and Sapphire first fused. It's also our first mention of Blue Diamond. Beautiful episode, and it was well performed by Estelle. In episode 22, we learn that Steven doesn't really grow up, and that no one has any idea how age affects him. He stretches himself out for too long and eventually turns into a baby as his gem can't handle the strain. It Could Have Been Great starts with a really good musical number. It tells a good story and develops the characters and the plot, which is wonderful. And they go to the moon. We learn more about the diamonds and get more emotional beats. Episode 24, Message Received. This one was a massive one when it first came out. The yellow diamond reveal is awesome. She's so intimidating. The last episode of the season is log date 7152, and it's a bit of a cooldown episode. It's also an episode I teased earlier. No, it's not Uncle Grandpa. It's just an episode where Steven learns how Peridot and Garnet became closer. It's cute, but they cuck us with a Peridot-Garnet fusion. I hate it because she never fuses. They never get around to it. Season 2 was a step up for sure. It felt more put together and had way more interesting through lines. The only thing missing here was like a big fight or confrontation. As you'll find out, or no, every season has some like big event that happens, but it was kind of disappointing to get to the end and not really have anything. It was much more lore heavy, and there's a lot of setup being done, not only for next season but for the entire series as a whole. The music also had a step up here, which I appreciate. I'll give this 7.3 pissed yellow diamonds out of 10. Let's talk a bit about how this show looks. The style of this show is pretty damn unique. Of course, it's cute and colorful, but there are so many quirks and design choices, and the way that the colors are used gives it this really satisfying look. First and foremost, the backgrounds are phenomenal. They're colored so beautifully, and the use of diamonds everywhere gives it so much character. The lighting as well is so underrated when it comes to this show. I always wish they do more rainy episodes, because the lighting they make perfectly encapsulates the feeling of rain. A lot of gem and monster designs can be so creative and memorable. It's not all grand though. Sometimes the characters are drawn with just the most inconsistency, man. Sizes, faces, hair, It's all completely riddled with mistakes. I know why. There are so many people working on so many different episodes, so it's pretty excusable when one person can't make something look exactly like somebody else's work. Plus, most of the time, it's really hard to notice when you're not actively searching for it. It's not easy to keep every single character exactly the same all the time. You get flaws with hand-drawn or stiffness with rigged animation. They probably wanted to, and had to use hand-drawn for all the different silly movements and fight scenes. My eyeballs are full of all this candy. Alright, fucking, let's just move on to the next season. Season 3 begins with Super Watermelon Island, and the only importance is that Steven can become a Watermelon Steven and Malachite is over. Well, at least the Alexandrite fight was pretty cool. Episode 2 is the Cluster Fight. There are some cool visuals. I love how spooky these shots can be. And that's the cluster dealt with. Kinda. It's a good cluster now. Same Old World is episode 3, and it's a Lapis episode where she learns to appreciate the Earth and decides to live there. The flashback section's cool looking, and so are a lot of the environment shots. This one's mainly just eye candy. Episode 4 is a setup for a main-ish antagonist, or group of antagonists, the Rubies. Number 5, there's a baseball game. Yep. That's it. No, it's a fun episode where Ruby and Sapphire are cute, and Lapis is pretty funny too. And Steven floats. In episode 7, Marty gives Greg $10 million. It really just sets up episode 8. Mr. Greg is phenomenal. The visuals of the city, the character dynamics, the music. This episode feels like a demo for the movie with all the flair and showmanship. And this episode has the song. Well, okay, well, it has 4 songs and a reprise at the end. But It's Over, Isn't It is a top 5 song for sure. I'm going to talk about the music more later, but understand that this number, both visually, instrumentally, fantastic. But the performance is chef's fucking kiss. This episode's one of the best of the whole series. Episode 9, Too Short to Ride, is the episode where we find out Peridot has metal bending powers. Episode 10 is the only Lars episode of the season, and it's a weird one. Steven takes control of Lars's body for a day, which is really creepy, and it doesn't really come up again. I think the Watermelon Stevens are supposed to be the same thing, but up until this point, I thought it was really just a unique thing with his plant creations, because he only ever uses it on them after this point. Beach City Drift, episode 11, marks the return of the true series villain, Kevin! This episode is anime as shit, and I like that. Number 12 is Restaurant Wars. The restaurants go to war. Goodbye, Kofi. Goodbye, Mr. Fryman. This is your last episode. Kiki's Pizza Delivery Service is episode 13. More restaurant episodes. Yay. This one's fine. Kiki weirdly has a rare bit of character development. Number 14, Monster Reunion. Steven's healing powers are back, and now Steven can heal corrupted gems. I like this in-between of a regular and corrupted gem. We also get more insight into the corruption incident. 15 starts out as a mid-tier episode and ends with Jasper coming out of the ocean and getting punched into oblivion. Episode 16, Greg the Babysitter, is a flashback episode, but to me it's probably the weakest one. In 17, Connie goes on her first mission with Steven and Pearl where they find Jasper obtaining 2 corrupted gems, which comes up in 18, Crack the Whip. This one's sick. It starts out with like a fun time type episode where Steven and Connie hang out with Amethyst, and it ends with Stefani fighting Jasper and Amethyst starting her main character arc. Steven vs. Amethyst is the episode where Steven and Amethyst fight to see who's the worst. New power unlock, Spike Bubble. Episode 20, Bismuth. God, that title card goes so cold. This is a crazy episode. Bismuth is such a cool character, man. Her design is awesome and her VA did a great job. But it's so sad that she just disappears until the last season. Still, this was one of the hypest episodes back then. Episode 21 reveals Jasper's army and leaves off with a cliffhanger ending that leads into episode 22, Earthlings. And boom, new fusion alert, we've got Smoky Quartz. I fucking love a yo-yo user, man. Corrupted Jasper is really cool, and the Peridot kill, let's fucking go! Also, the name drop of Pink Diamond's pretty neat. Jasper's VA did a great job. 23 shows us the return of the Rubies, and we end up back on the moon. We learn about how Rose shattered Pink Diamond, and one of the Rubies pulls Steven into the cold vacuum of space. I wonder what next episode's gonna be about. Bubbled is the name of the final episode of Season 3. Eyeball being the antagonist here is pretty nice, considering the bit of build-up she had in the baseball episode. The limited conflict, despite taking place in the infinite expanse of space, is also really cool. And Love Like You is the ending. Great episode. Season 3 really kept the momentum going. Although there were no Diamond appearances, Jasper proved to be an intimidating enough villain, and there's still plenty of setup being done for later. This one had so much development for characters who needed it. Lapis, Peridot, Greg and Pearl, and most of all, Amethyst. The bigger event episodes were also top-notch, with Mr. Greg, Bismuth, the beginning and end all being great. There were a couple of mediocre episodes, but with great music, more wonderfully animated scenes, and a bigger plot build, I'm gonna have to give this one 8.6 yo-yos out of 10. So, I wanted this next part to be about like alternate media and merchandising, but I'm not Quentin Reviews, so it's not gonna be that fancy. Listen, I don't got money to shell out for DS kits and plushies, alright? I will try to talk about as many of the interesting products as I could find, and for that, I have to shout out the Tumblr page Love Takes Work. They have a mega collection of Steven Universe merch that they make sure to document and display in one single place. Of course, you've got t-shirts and plushes and figures and Funko Pops. As far as the interesting things go, you've got these really expensive varsity jackets, based on the ones that Steven wears in future. You've got this Garnet-based karaoke mic, which is very fitting for the show, but her face is the handle, and that's kinda weird to me. Speaking of Garnet, there's the Yahtzee set where you use her gauntlet to roll the dice. And finally, of course, a cheeseburger backpack. Most of the merchandising came from the original show run, and a lot of those were only available in small quantities at things like San Diego Comic-Con. I'm just surprised we didn't get any action figure toys. Like, new from Hasbro, the Crystal Gems spring into action, with Rocket Fist launching Garnet, real tear-crying Pearl, and the other one. There's also like the comics, graphic novels, books, and soundtracks. I guess I don't really know what you'd want to hear about those. They're just Steven Universe versions of those things. There's not really any like interesting lore drops to be found either. I did, however, find a way to play one of the games. Just please remind me to cancel my Apple Arcade subscription. I just want the free month. I swear, if that $5 goes through, I'm gonna have some goddamn words with myself, because that's just me being dumb. I played Unleash the Light, and it's fine. The combat got really old really quick, so the only parts about it that I liked was the character interactions, which there weren't that many. But Unleash the Light is only the third in its respective series. Aside from the Light games, there's also Dreamland Arcade, which doesn't exist anymore, Gembound, which doesn't exist anymore, The Phantom Fable, which doesn't exist anymore, Soundtrack Attack, which doesn't exist anymore. Do you want me to keep going? On top of those, we have a bunch of browser-based ones, and characters from the series have appeared in multiple other games, like Battle Crashers, Multiverses, and even Brawlhalla. I don't know what this was for, if I'm being honest. Like, stuff exists. That's the section of the video. We're over halfway done with the original series. It feels weird. Like, a lot of setup is still going on, but I haven't really seen too much about the diamonds. But I also remember these last two seasons being really dense. Season 4 begins with a Wile E. Coyote reference as a whole episode. Also, Peridot can bubble things now. There are two things about that that's kind of sad, because number one, it's the last of her power development, and two, I don't think she ever uses it again. Number 2 is Know Your Fusion. Amethyst and Steven show off smoky quartz to Garnet and Pearl, and a very charming episode comes out of it. They also reveal that Sardonyx has her own room in the temple, which makes me kind of want to know what the other fusions rooms would look like. Buddy's Book is a history episode where Steven and Connie read a book about an old adventurer exploring a bunch of gem locations. The only really interesting part is the quick tease of the palanquin. Episode 4, Mindful Education, is my favorite episode. Here Comes a Thought is so important to me. I love the progression of conflict here, where you think it's just Connie with her anxieties, but then Steven's fears start to kick in. The transition where Stevani is stabbing at Bismuth, and then the rose head, the butterflies, the colors. Gah! This is a wonderfully made episode that really spells out anxiety in a hard-hitting, yet easy to understand way. 5. Future Boy Zoltron is about Steven becoming a fortune teller. This feels like a mediocre season 1 episode, but the ending is pretty cute. Episode 6 is character development for Pearl, and an extremely fun episode. This one feels really different from the rest of them. It's almost more mature, with house music, law breaking, and Amethyst almost swearing.
Oh, you're a total bad.
But I kind of like that about it. 7 is an Onion episode, but also it's Craig of the Creek. Episode 8 is Gem Harvest, which introduces Andy, an asshole. He's all of the isms. Until he isn't. It's such a weird episode to get the double-length special treatment. It just feels like really long filler to me. Episode 9 is much better. It's a flashback episode where the gems end up stealing baby Steven from Greg. I love Pearl's emotions, especially at the start of the episode. It's cute. Episode 10 has the full introduction of the Palanquin. When Garnet gets upset and cold, it gets really interesting. Also, a fourth wall break. And it all leads to Blue Diamond's big reveal. And Greg's kidnapping. Good stuff. Episode 11, they go to a human zoo made by the Diamonds to find Greg. Gem Heist is next, and it introduces Holly Blue Agate. She's cool. The Zoo, episode 13. Steven finds Greg and they ruin a utopia. That will be all is the important one. We see the Diamonds interacting, and yeah, that is well needed. The song is also cool. I'm glad they put villainous songs in here. Yellow's VA kind of clips the mic, but it's fine. The new Crystal Gems is about Connie, Lapis, and Peridot being the new Crystal Gems while the others were gone. I like seeing these characters interact, but other than that, Episode 16's cool. Steven confronts his mom, or rather a figment of his mom, in her room. There's good character development and the visuals are great. 17 is a Ronaldo episode. Tiger Philanthropist is 18 and it's another wrestling filler episode. Episode 19 shows the return of Navy, one of the Ruby guards. She's a twist villain, and I knew she wasn't gonna become a new Crystal Gem, but it was still disappointing to see. Lion 4! It's been a minute. Steven gets a super special key. He finds a tape with it, and I'm so glad they got to the bottom of it immediately rather than trying to drag it out. A bunch of speculation on who Nora could be would have been just not that fun. This chain of episodes coming up is something I remember being extremely present for. Episode 21 is Dugout. The title sends a tidal wave of nostalgia through my brain. It's weird though, because I didn't actually remember the episode itself. The only important bit is the part with the shadows at the end. The Good Lars is the same as the last episode, but reverse the title versus episode remembering thing. Lars is so frustrating, but it's for his setup, so I'm fine with it. And Sadie hanging out with the cool kids is also good setup for later. In episode 23, we find out that everyone is going missing. The reason ends up being a duo, or trio, of gems, Aquamarine and Topaz, who are kidnapping specific Beach City citizens. I Am My Mom. The title of this episode is so powerful. This is the season 4 finale, and god damn, the I'm not my dad, I'm my mom line at the end is killer. And it also kicks off Lars's big arc. I'm having mixed feelings on this one. It has my favorite episode, great music, and a lot of important events that build up into next season. But there's something off about it. I know that the Townie episodes are becoming less interesting. Because when you sandwich a Ronaldo episode and a wrestling episode between the two most important events in the series so far, it gets really hard not to skip them. But the zoo arc felt oddly tame for most of it, and Gem Harvest getting the double-length treatment was just pretty disappointing. Still, there's some good stuff here. 7.4 bingo bongos out of 10. This is the moment I've been waiting for. The music in this show is one of the few things that it can wear with full pride. Other shows can take home character work, storytelling, visuals, but music? I feel like this show is unmatched by how many quality pieces it puts out. There are only 2 cartoons that I can think of with a soundtrack this refined. Over the Garden Wall and Adventure Time. Over the Garden Wall, being a small limited series, allowed it to have such an incredible soundtrack, but I don't know how well it would have fared at a 150 plus episode run. And as much as I love Adventure Time's music, it is 100% carried by Olivia Olson, which isn't a bad thing, but seeing Steven Universe give out so many incredible songs through all these different characters is wonderful. Do it for her, something entirely new, peace and love on the planet Earth, for just one day, change your mind. Don't forget about Stronger Than You, an absolute jaw-dropper and one of the most memorable moments in the entire series. Escapism, a beautiful song from AJ with both backing vocals from Zach and Grace. I wish it wasn't used in the way it was, but it's still gorgeous. It's Over, isn't it? An absolute showstopper and one of the best performances in the entire series. Here Comes a Thought, which is an incredible display of not only music, but visual art as well, providing such a moving and heart-wrenching piece of artistry that encapsulates anxiety so well. And Love Like You, which has become not only one of the most popular and beloved songs from a cartoon, but a massive song in general, garnering over 150 million streams on Spotify. The music in this show is next to none, and I haven't even gotten to the movie. Hi, it's editing me. For some reason, I didn't think to write anything about the actual score of the show. It was done by Ivy and Sarashu, and God, it's just such good atmospheric music. It sets the mood so well, and it's just really satisfying to listen to. Alright, bye. All I can say is nice, Steven Universe. Good on you. So, one more season to go. I feel like the only thing that I'm missing is how little the diamonds have been actual characters. Season 5, Episode 1 starts with Stuck Together. I love this arc so much. Steven and Lars try to escape, but they end up getting separated when they land on Homeworld. The Trial is next, and oh man, it's so good. We meet Zircon, another new gem. This episode feels really thought out, with the Palanquin, Lars, and mention of the breaking point. Off Colors is the third of this four-parter, and it introduces, the Off Colors. Lars kicks ass and then straight up fucking dies. It's messed up, but then Steven's healing tears emerge and brings him back to life. The special ends with Lars's head. Lars's hair is linked to the pink dimension, meaning Steven can now move between him and Lion. So Lars stays with the Off Colors and Steven heads home. I'm sure they'll try to help him in the next episode. Yeah, no. The next episode is about an election. I still don't like Dewey. Gemcation is episode 6. And this is the reason why I thought the Steven-Connie conflict from the beginning of Season 2 was longer. Connie's MIA for a while, being upset with what happened, and rightfully so. Episode 7, Lapis takes the barn and leaves Earth. Back to the Kindergarten shows Peridot still upset over what happened with Lapis. They plant some flowers, the flowers die, and then they get sad. Until they don't. Sadie Killer is the shocking title of the 9th episode, but she just starts a band. Episode 10 is fucking Kevin! Steven and Connie make up. That's it. Episode 11 begins another special. Lars of the Stars. I love the style of this episode. Lars just becomes a badass space pirate. In episode 12, Stevani gets trapped on an alien moon and has a dream about the diamonds. But it's revealed that they're actually dreaming as Pink Diamond. I love how Stevani's dreams are fusion dreams. They take aspects of both Steven and Connie's thoughts. Episode 13 has Garnet telling the Off Colors about Rose's story. 14, The Big Show, is about Sadie and her band's first gig. I like the style of this episode, it's pretty fun. In episode 15, Pool Hopping, Garnet goes insane and adopts a cat. A Letter to Lars is next, and it's kind of a wrap-up on all the townies. Kind of. On the surface, that's what it looks like, but it really just ended up being an Ex-Mayor Dewey episode. In episode 17, Can't Go Back, Steven finds Lapis on the moon spying on the crystal gems. But after Steven has a dream about the diamonds, she runs away again. The dream's kinda crazy though, as it insinuates that Pearl killed Pink Diamond. A single pale rose looks to resolve the conflict of last episode, and drop the biggest reveal in the show thus far. Steven goes into Pearl's gem. He digs through her memories and finds out that Rose Quartz is actually Pink Diamond, and Pearl is Pink Diamond's pearl. She was never shattered, and instead reformed herself as Rose. Also, it shows us why Pearl never shapeshifts in the series. We get to see a bunch of different Pearl designs here too. Now We're Only Falling Apart is another direct sequel. We get more insight on Rose, or Pink, and Ruby runs away from Sapphire after Sapphire gets mad. Number 20, Amethyst has her last big character arc and they find Ruby with Greg. The Question has Ruby development, and Sapphire and Ruby become engaged. 22, Maid of Honor, builds up the wedding and has the very late return of Bismuth, which, by the way, she's been in a bubble for like a year now. I know that gems live for thousands of years, but like, it's still kinda messed up that they didn't try to socialize with the only sentient, uncorrupted gem they had locked up in their bubble room. God, I forgot the wedding arc was like 6 episodes, but 23 and 24 is the actual wedding. The song at the beginning is lovely, and Ruby wearing a dress is fucking adorable. It's a phenomenal recap of the story as a whole, but the diamonds end up crashing the wedding. Blue Diamond especially goes fucking sicko mode. Lapis comes back and now she's cracked as fuck. Steven dies, I think, and the diamonds find out that he's actually Pink Diamond. Episode 25 is the diamonds trying to heal a corrupted gem. It doesn't work, and they tell him that they need White Diamond. That's where she's name dropped for the first time in the entire series. She's been teased in imagery, but this is like our first confirmation. They go to Homeworld, and I'm so glad that Connie goes with them. She hasn't been in much action in the show, and after the last time Steven went, I really wanted them to take on things together. Steven meets White, but before he can say anything to her, she sends him to Pink's room. His room. Episode 25, Familiar. Steven talks to the diamonds to no avail, so he decides to throw a party. Together alone, it's party time! Until it isn't. Episode 27, and the penultimate episode of the series, Escapism. We get the gorgeous song, Escapism, and Steven turns into a watermelon Steven to tell his dad and Bismuth that shit's gone bad. Change Your Mind is the final episode. A 40+ minute episode at that. Steven gets Blue Diamond on his side, and Blue and Yellow fight. They also get Yellow on their side, but when White finds out, Steven gets a chance to run away from it all. He stays to help convince White Diamond to change, but then Yellow and Blue end up possessed by White. In order to get his friends back, we get to see more fusions. Rainbow Quartz has a new form, and all the gems get redesigned. Then Garnet and Steven fuse into probably my least favorite fusion. Sunstone is interesting. But then, we see Obsidian. Yeah, they were trying to tie up all the loose ends. It's a bit rushed, but it's still fun. Obsidian's sword is fucking awesome, by the way. White is very intimidating. I really like the stylization of her, the gray outline, staticky room. And they finally did something that they teased back in the flashback episode, 3 Gems and a Baby. White Diamond pulls out Steven's gem. This dual shot between the body and gem is super cool. The scream. She's gone! The spin. Ah, God, it's great. Steven, being the little smooth talker that he is, does eventually get through to White. They go home, Lars comes back, and they heal all the corrupted gems. Then, Steven finishes it out with Change Your Mind. Season 5 is dense. I mean, it had to be, seeing as it was going to be their last one. I let myself think on this one the longest, because I feel like I could go multiple different ways of talking about it. I think Season 5 is a good season. Despite having the abrupt end and trying to tie up all these loose ends as quickly as possible, I still think it went well. It has 4 great specials, a lot of character development, good music, wonderful performances, and some really great shots. It was rushed, but I won't let that taint this season alone. That's more of an overarching problem with the entire series. Based on how much I enjoyed rewatching this season, I'll give it 8 weird moonbirds out of 10. And that wraps up our original series discussion. Overall, it was a pretty damn solid show. The visuals, especially the color work and backgrounds, were great. The performances were incredible, and it gave us some of the best music in a cartoon that I've ever heard. However, with some character shots that look rough and a very rushed ending that felt unsatisfying, I can't consider it to be the best of the best. My number one complaint with this series is its inability to focus. It feels like it's on a seesaw, tipping between overarching plot development and bland filler. And even when some of the less important episodes have character and plot development, it just feels bogged down by the energy of it. The difference between Season 1 and Season 5 is jarring. It feels like they kept pushing and pulling the direction of the way the story was being told. We had constant light progression at first, then it was full setup for later, then a bunch of character arcs played out, and then finally all the big flashy endgame stuff. It just lacked a sense of flow. They also kept adding plot and characters and settings, but they wouldn't expand on any of it. Peridot? Once her arc was done, she became a generic comedic relief character. Lapis? She had her arc, and when they wanted to do something else with her, they just did it again. Bismuth? A joke. She was introduced earlier on and then brought back for the series finale with no actual evidence of character development. The off-colors, the fusions from Change Your Mind, the corrupted gems, most of the townies, hell, even Greg stops being a dynamic character after the zoo arc. They just tried to cram way too many eggs into their basket. Still, for what it is, it's pretty damn good. All of the characters and plot points that do get focused on are well done, and the quality of the animation, art style, music, and vocal talents increases more and more as the series goes on. While I don't personally think that this show is a better show than Adventure Time, I do still think it's a very good show. I give the original 5-season run of Steven Universe a 7+. Oh, and before we jump into the movie, I'm gonna lightning round the shorts. What are gems? This is just a recap of the explanation of gems told over the whole series. How are gems made? This is just a recap of the gem creation processes told over the whole series. Unboxing special number 1. Wacky Sack Hot Dog Duffel Bag. It explains exactly when he got his duffel bag, which is seen in multiple episodes such as Keystone Motel. Fusion. This is just a recap of the explanation of fusions told over the whole series. Lion loves to fit in a box. He's in a box. This one's just the extended theme song. The rest are known as minisodes. Cooking with Lion. It's a cooking video. Gem Karaoke. They sing the Olivia Olson song. It's kinda cute. Steven Reacts. Steven reacts to a dumb show. The whole thing is a parody of Steven Universe itself. Very tongue-in-cheek. Video chat. I distinctly remember this one. Steven calls Peridot, but Lapis thinks he's stuck in her tablet. I don't understand this, because gems have video chat capabilities that have already been shown prior to this short. Steven song time. Steven sings a song. I'm gonna mention a couple of things real quick. First off is the Dove Self-Esteem Project and the anti-racism shorts. They're informative animated shorts using Steven Universe characters to promote body positivity and anti-racism with multiple different messages. The other thing I'm gonna briefly talk about is the fandom. I could not talk about this show without at least mentioning it. Now, I'm not gonna dwell because nowadays they seem somewhat chill, but there's a reason why in every single conversation about terrible fan bases, this one is always there. Some absolutely heinous shit has come from the people there. And sure, bad apples in the orchard or whatever, but there are bad apples, and there are apples who bully people so hard that they attempt to take their own life. So no, that'll never get a pass from me. Let's move on, yeah? It's movie time. Now, I actually kind of Star Wars'd my rewatch. I watched the movie first, then the main series, and then Future. I don't know if it made for a better viewing experience, but it was kind of fun to do it. This is a really well-made movie. It begins with the Diamonds recapping the entire story of the series and begging Steven to stay with them after he broadcasts to everyone that he's staying on Earth. He holds his ground and heads home to recap some more with another song. It's a better song, though. After lazing about for a bit, Garnet's future vision shows her that their happily ever after is about to be destroyed. And then it is! A giant drill crashes into the Earth, and from it emerges a new villain to fight. Spinel is a great character. And villain, but I'll get to that in a bit. She ends up poofing the gems, but Steven beats her. However, something's not quite right when he finds out that his powers aren't working. Greg gives him some reassurance, but when Pearl reforms, things aren't looking so good. She, along with the other gems, including Spinel, have been factory reset to their original forms. So, with none of the other gems' memories or any of his powers, Steven turns to Bismuth, Lapis, and Peridot for help. They set out to find a way to regain the memories of Garnet, Amethyst, and Pearl by having them live through important moments from their lives. First up, Ruby and Sapphire's fusion. Steven's failed attempt at threatening them into fusion turns into a successful attempt as through a Rube Goldberg machine of hijinks, Sapphire saves Ruby from being shattered by an anvil and they become Garnet. Not Garnet though. Brand new Garnet. So they put that one on the back burner and try Amethyst. After a very cute duet, Amethyst is back. Quick and easy. You know what isn't quick and easy? Getting rid of the big injector pumping poison into the Earth. The only way to get rid of it safely is through Spinel, but the evil crazy version. In order for Steven to help Spinel back to her old self, he helps Pearl because she's the only one to have known her. After a big show and Amethyst transforming into Rose, They get Pearl back through the power of fusion. Steg is interesting. I like the VA and the song is great, plus seeing more fusion is always fun, but man, there's something interesting about that one. Steven's struggling, but he powers on to help Spinel remember. And that's when we learn about the garden and what Pink did to Spinel. Just another thing to throw onto the pile of Pink being a fucking villain. Spinel agrees to shut off the drill, and so she does. And that's the movie. Just kidding, Steven's a dumbass. He doesn't say anything wrong, but his phrasing is so bad that Spinel goes right back to being angry again. Now sure, the injector comes down, but it brings Garnet back when she remembers that love is good. They fight Spinel for a bit, but she realizes that she can just get what she wants by speeding up the injector. I thought it was a plot hole because she could have just done that in the first place, but I can also see it as a way to make Steven suffer. The gems help save the townsfolk from the poison, and Steven climbs the injector to talk to Spinel. And as he's dangling, helpless hundreds of feet in the sky, he realizes why his powers are missing, which gives him his powers back. Then, with a fight and a song, they become friends and destroy the injector. Steven starts kissing the ground to heal the poison damage, but is interrupted by the diamonds crashing in. They take Spinel as like a replacement Steven, and then we kind of skip through the recovery process as the final song plays. It's a pretty damn good movie. The performances, especially in the song department, were great, the visuals popped off every now and again, and the story and characters were solid as hell. Spinel was a great villain, despite being such a powerless character when compared to the Diamonds or Jasper. And the conflict relied on character flaws rather than a big bad evil, which was pretty refreshing. I want to touch on the music some more, because it's a musical, and yeah, it was well done. At first, some of the writing felt a bit on the nose, but that kind of went away after I settled into my musical watching mode. I'm a sucker for reprises, so Just Let Us Adore You and the Happily Ever After songs were really cool. True Kinda Love is great, Disobedient and Independent Together are fun. Zach did great on a lot of this soundtrack, but Change was definitely the highlight. And finally, Sarah Styles on Drift Away and Other Friends was fucking killer. What a good casting. I do have a couple of problems, like, once again, the abrupt ending. Also, since I was in performance mode, I was looking to the other characters for like their reactions and stuff, but they would often just stand there and like wait for their line. It's not the end of the world, it's just what I noticed. I think the movie's better than the show. 8. I've got one more thing up my sleeve. No, it's not Say Uncle. I said no. It's something I haven't even mentioned until now. The Steven Universe pilot episode. Now, I feel like this is something that I shouldn't talk about because the Cartoon Network YouTube channel took it down. But it's too cool not to. So I'm gonna. It begins with an intro that is very different from the original, or normal one. No songs, just a few lines of dialogue. The gems, with their interesting designs, come back from an adventure, and after Steven sings the song that would eventually become the intro, Amethyst gives him a cool orb thing. It's actually the hourglass that Steven uses in the first season to make a band, but this time he uses it for sick comebacks against Lars. This use is imprinted on it, as now it can only be used by Steven for comebacks. An evil skull creature seeking it out attacks, and Garnet calls Steven a buttface. Now that might not seem like it's important, but don't worry. It's a surprise tool that'll help us later. Actually, it'll help us now. The gems get beat up, so Steven uses a comeback to go back in time to save the day. And so he does. And then does it again to an earlier point in the episode. Man, I wish I could go back in time to set that up better. Oh well. It's very different. I won't play any audio, but like Steven's voice is kind of weird and the visuals are... Yeah, that's very 2000s. It was alright. If you know where to look, I'd suggest checking it out. Well, I guess I'm done. And hopefully Steven Universe is too. I think they really gave it its last bit of breath with the movie because Future just didn't really do it for me. I still think the franchise holds up well, and is one of the best cartoons of the 2010s. Despite a rough fan base, rushed endings, sour sequel show, and a bit of a failing reputation for whatever reason that is, it's still a huge show that managed to keep its head above the water and really stand out in some incredible ways. And on top of that, it's kind of evolved into something more than just a show. With messages of body positivity and acceptance, themes relating to multiple different parts of the LGBTQ+ community, and characters who don't conform to typical gender norms, it stands out as a wonderful piece of art that welcomes those who are welcoming. Happy birthday, Steven Universe. Adios.